Seton, and much more. Save your money, save your time. Compare, and you'll find that there is no more researched or superior product available on the market today. Call now and get your discount prices on your next Bio Superfood at 303-257-7576, 303-257-7576, or biosuperfood@hotmail.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Herb.
All of God's people have a ministry, and it's a trick of our enemy to keep God's people sick and worn out to hinder their ability to minister. We are often judgmental toward people who are addicted to booze, cigarettes, and drugs, but we at the Green Herb have found that most of God's people are unknowingly addicted to the two most addictive products in America, sugar and soda pop. If you have a sickness or disease, or if you're just tired a lot, the Green Herb has an herbal product that is formulated just for you, and it's just $15.95. Come by the Green Herb, located in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, on the I-70 Frontage Road North, 1 mile west of Kipping, or call 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372, or go to our website, www.thegreenherb.com, and be sure to listen to the Green Herb Show with Linda and Dr. Cass every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on KHNC.
Mitt Romney in Israel pisses off the Palestinians, and I love it. CNN disses Michelle Bachmann. Nancy Pelosi puts her foot in her mouth once again. The Department of Homeland Security has ordered large quantities of riot gear, and whom do you think they intend to use it on? And the audit the Fed bill gets passed by the House, but Obama and the Democrats are going to kill it. My name's Howard Riell. This is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com, and on Facebook and YouTube and Real TV, and in the book Real Truth, Stay Angry. And, of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number, 877-254-7524. My friends, welcome back to a spanking new week of Real Truth. Allow me to assault your senses. Item from Facebook.com. Palestinian leaders expressed offense and outrage at comments by Mitt Romney during his lightning visit to Israel, in which he said the Jewish state's economic success compared with its Palestinian neighbors was due to cultural differences and the hand of providence, and declared Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel. Stop. Mitt Romney just earned my vote. If he was saying that Jewish culture is superior to Palestinian culture, I don't know what he's talking about, since there are no Palestinians and there is no Palestinian culture, unless you want to say that acts of violence, murder, mayhem, rape, terror, and support of terror constitute a culture, in which case the Palestinians are doing just fine. Hand of providence? Well, let's try and figure that out. The Jews are a light unto the nation, so God favors them. The Palestinians are a blight unto the nations, and so God keeps them under his foot. It makes perfect sense to me. The presumptive Republican candidate in the U.S. presidential race told a $25,000 a head fundraising event in Jerusalem, quote, "As I come here and I look out over the city and consider the accomplishments of the people of this nation, I recognize the power of at least culture and of a few other things." He cited the climate of innovation, the Jewish history of thriving in adversity, and the hand of providence. Saeb Erekat, senior Palestinian official, condemned Romney's comments. Quote, "It's a racist statement, and this man doesn't realize that the Palestinian economy cannot reach its potential because there is an Israeli occupation." Stop. Mr. Erekat, I say with respect, kiss my butt. I'm just joking. I didn't really say it with respect. Racial statement, there's nothing racial about it. Point one. Number two, Palestinian economy is a joke. Without huge handouts of hundreds of millions of dollars from Israel, from America, from the West, the Palestinians would be eating dog food every day and be killing each other to get it. There is no Palestinian economy. And there is no Israeli occupation. If anything, Israel is occupied by a bunch of squatters, criminals, who call themselves Palestinians. Item from Barbara Ginsburg's desktop. 200 Jews gathered on Tisha B'Av morning to go up to the Temple Mount. By the way, my friends, Tisha B'Av was 2 days ago. It is the day on the Jewish calendar of great mourning. It is the day in which the spies returned and told Moses and the Jewish people that they could not conquer the land of Israel. It's the day on which the first holy temple was destroyed. It's the day on which the second holy temple was also destroyed. It's the day on which the Jewish people were once and for all exiled from Spain. It's the day on which World War I was ignited, which led in a series of steps to World War II and the Holocaust. It is a day of mourning. It is the saddest day on the calendar. Jews gathered on the morning of Tisha B'Av 2 days ago to go up to the Temple Mount in the capital of Jerusalem. After being promised entry, some 20 minutes later it was denied. A policeman came out and said, "Sorry, we've decided it's closed today," with no explanation. Phone calls to police contacts confirmed the commander of the Jerusalem District Police had decided to keep the site closed. Knesset member Michael Ben-Ari was among those who attacked the closure of the Temple Mount to Jews on Sunday, saying, "The time has come for the racist policy of the police to stop. The Temple Mount practices a policy of apartheid against Jews under the public security minister, Yitzhak Aronovich," unquote. Absolutely correct. Once again, Michael Ben-Ari is exactly correct. There is racism going on in Israel. There is apartheid in Israel. The authorities practice apartheid against the Jews, against the majority, if you can believe how insane that is. Palestinians, Christians, people of any religion in the world are allowed free access to the Temple Mount, but not Jews. You heard right, my friends. In the capital of the Jewish state, Jews keep Jews from ascending the Temple Mount. If this is not insanity, then what is it? Well, I'm here to give you the answer to that question. It's what we call Chilul Hashem. It is a desecration of God's holy name. If you want to know why there is strife in the world, why there's strife in the Middle East, why there's strife in Israel, this is it. This is your answer. As long as the state of Israel and the politicians who run it keep spitting in God's face, nothing good is going to happen, nor should it. Item from the Weekly Standard. In an interview, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said she believes Republican Jews are being exploited, but she was quick to add, "And they're smart people." Stop. Nancy Pelosi obviously is a jackass. If she were only a jackass, I would be okay with that. But she's a jackass in a position of power and influence, and that is very, very, very bad. Because Pelosi and Reid and Clinton and Obama and Biden and Schumer and that whole fetid, disgusting crew are working to achieve exactly what is poison to the United States of America, to the state of Israel, and to the world in general. You know, I don't go in for the Republican-Democrat paradigm because I don't think it matters all that much anymore, but this president, this administration, his henchmen in the Congress, they have got to go. I don't know if there's a law on the books that would classify what they do as treason, but I sure as hell do. I'm no lawyer, but I got 2 eyes and a brain. When I see Nancy Pelosi insulting Jews, insulting conservatives, insulting America, it's time to boot her wrinkled, scrawny ass out of Congress. In case you're foggy on the issue, you're listening to Real Truth.
Now this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve, as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
We are back with more Real Truth. Howard Riell talking to you. Pennsylvania Representative Mike Kelly got a standing ovation last week on the floor of the House of Representatives. Why? Judge for yourself.
Yes. Gentlemen, it's nice for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2011, we came to this House for one reason, and it was a motion to recommit. We recommitted to the people of the United States that we were going to change the way business was done in this town. This motion to recommit is a joke. This is ridiculous. Now, let me tell you about what it's like to be in the real world and not inside the Beltway. I operate a business that my father started back in 1953 after being a parts picker in a General Motors warehouse, going to fight the war and coming back home. I called our body shop manager today, Jason Scholes. He's been with me for 26 years. And I said to Jason, I need to know the cost of tape, Jason. He goes, well, what are you talking about, Mike? I said, in our body shop, when people wreck their car and bring their car, and I know we have to use a lot of tape. He says, oh, my goodness, has the cost of tape gone crazy? So we use two types of tape, Mike. We use green tape. Green tape is the tape we use when we have to use water on a job, and we have to make sure that tape sticks. He said, that's up to $4 a roll. I said, tell me about the other tape. He said, well, the other tape is yellow tape. I said, yellow tape? Tell me what the yellow tape does. He said, that's when we're going to paint a car, and we don't have to use the green tape. The yellow tape's a little less expensive. It's only $2 a roll. He said, well, Mike, I got to tell you, we're spending $160 a month on tape, and it's really starting to make me wonder about whether I'm doing the right thing. I said, so, Jason, we're $1,000 a year on green and yellow tape. He said, yes, we are. I said, Jason, you know what the cost of red tape is? He goes, I have no idea. We don't use red tape. I said, oh, yes, we do. It's $1.75 trillion. That's the cost of red tape. And I called my friend Don Shamey at Next Tier Bank, and I said, Don, we've known each other since we were kids. Our wives know each other. Our kids grew up together. We do a lot of things together. I've done business with you for 40 years. You're right across the street from me. Don, tell me about the new regulations. He said, well, Mike, if you take a look at it, there's 1,100 pages now that are the definition of whether you're a qualified borrower or not. I said, it only took 1,100 pages for the government to determine what the definition is of a qualified borrower. Are you kidding me? Do you mean to sit here and say that you are serious? We renovated a ballpark in my hometown. A guy named Tom Bernatowski, veteran. It was a couple $1 million to renovate our ballpark. The day we were going to open up, I got a call at the dealership. He said, Mike, would you come down? I said, why? What's going on? He said, we're having trouble with the occupancy permit. So I went down to see. I said, so what's the problem? He said, well, here, come in the men's room. Let me show you what the problem is. I said, we have 1,500 people want to come see the opening ball game. I said, yeah, we've got a major problem. You see, the mirrors in the restroom are 1/4 of an inch too low. So you can't possibly open that ballpark. So you want to know the price of regulation? You want to talk about the thousands and thousands of pages that we put on the back of the job creators? You want to talk about creating jobs in America? When you want to see a nation that doesn't want to participate but wants to dominate in the world market, then let them rise. Take the heavy boot off the throat of America's job creators and let them breathe. The jobs we are talking about are not red jobs or blue jobs. They are red, white, and blue jobs. They are not Democrat jobs or Republican jobs or independent jobs or libertarian jobs. They are American jobs. If you want this country to thrive and not just survive, then please start playing the game by the rules and stop this ridiculous mockery of what it is that we do here in this town. We are so out of touch with the American people, and you know what all this does? It adds layer after layer after layer of cost. And that cost is ultimately paid for by the American consumer. You want to have more revenues? Then let the tide rise for all boats. Let us be able to not only survive, but to thrive. I urge all my colleagues on both sides now, this is not a left or right issue. This is an American issue. I urge you to rise today and vote for H.R. 4078. Let's let America get back to work. And with that, I yield back.
My friends, in case you didn't understand what he was saying, that's what an American sounds like. Item from newsbusters.com. Remember last November when Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann was disgracefully greeted with the song Lying a Blank, referring to a female dog, during her appearance on NBC's Late Night with Jimmy Fallon? On Sunday, Pink's Stupid Girls was played before a CNN Sunday morning piece about former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin visiting a Chick-fil-A restaurant to show support for the embattled company. Unquote. Couple of things right off the bat. NBC cannot present itself as a news outlet anymore because they are obviously partisan. They're not objective. A news outlet has to be objective. Same for CNN. They're playing games with what is a very, very serious responsibility. Freedom of the press. They're abusing freedom of the press. As far as Chick-fil-A is concerned, well, I've been reading about this. The owner of the company expressed an opinion. And because of that, the sky has basically fallen on him. People want to prevent him from doing business here or there. And there's nothing wrong with that, assuming you're in 1930s Germany or the Soviet Union or maybe Idi Amin's country. But if you're in America, it's worse than wrong. It's obscene. Item from Reuters. The Department of Homeland Security has ordered masses of riot gear equipment to prepare for potential significant domestic riots at the Republican National Convention, Democratic National Convention, and next year's presidential inauguration. The DHS submitted a rush solicitation to the Federal Business Opportunity site on Wednesday, which is a portal for federal government procurement requisitions of over $25,000. As the brief explains, the objective of this effort is to procure riot gear to prepare for the 2012 blah, 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 blah. The total amount ordered is about 150 sets of riot helmets, thigh and groin protectors, hard shell shin guards, and other riot gear. Specifically, DHS is looking to obtain 147 riot helmets with adjustable tactical face shield and liquid seal, 147 sets of upper body and shoulder protection, 152 sets of thigh and groin protection, 147 hard shell shin guards with substantial protection from flying debris, non-ballistic weapons and blows to the leg, and optimized protective design for severe riot control or tactical situations. 156 forearm protectors, 147 pairs of tactical gloves. The riot gear will be worn by Federal Protective Service agents who are tasked with protecting property, grounds, and buildings owned by the federal government, unquote. What the article doesn't make specifically clear is against whom all this equipment will be used. It will be used against you. If you go to any of these events and you want to go out and protest, as is your right as an American, this equipment will be used against you, maybe against your parents or children or spouses. The federal government is beefing up its war arsenal, its defense arsenal, to be used against Americans. Item from Fox News, more than $200 million has been wasted on U.S.-funded program to train Iraqi police that Iraq says it neither needed nor wanted, U.S. auditors say in a report. Unquote. My friends, $200 million. Done. Pissed away. Wasted. Question, how long do you have to work to make $200 million? All right, silly question. How many people have to work to make $200 million in your community? What could $200 million buy in your city or your state? Instead, it was pissed away on Iraqis who hate us, who want us out, who hate Israel, who hate freedom, who hate democracy. This is where hundreds of millions, nay, billions of dollars, American dollars, are going. And we just keep on voting for the same fools who have been doing it for decades and decades. Item from Sibel Edmonds, writing at boilingfrogspost.com. I quote, one of the most significant political developments in recent U.S. history has been the virtually unchallenged rise of the police state. Despite the vast expansion of the police powers of the executive branch of government, the extraordinary growth of an entire panoply of repressive agencies with hundreds of thousands of personnel and enormous public and secret budgets, and the vast scope of police state surveillance, including the acknowledged monitoring of over 40 million U.S. citizens and residents, no mass pro-democracy movement has emerged to confront the powers and prerogatives or even protest the investigations of the police state. Stop! Let me boil all that down for you. Why aren't we angry enough to start screaming? You know I scream every day on this show. Why am I alone? Why isn't America screaming its head off? Item from the Chicago Sun-Times. Ignoring Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan's history of anti-Semitic remarks, Mayor Rahm Emanuel on Wednesday welcomed the army of men dispatched to the streets by Farrakhan to stop the violence in Chicago neighborhoods. Stop. Stop. My friends, crack open your Bible. Jacob takes his wives and children and belongings and leaves the house of Laban, where he's been living for years. Laban doesn't want him going and taking his wives and children and belongings, so Laban takes after him with his men the next day, rides after Jacob and his family. When he stops for the night, God appears to Laban and says, listen, when you eventually come before Jacob, I don't want you to say anything good or bad to him. And right there, the rabbis of the Talmud stop and they ask a question. They say, what's going on here? First of all, we don't understand God appearing to a crumb like Laban, but okay. We understand saying to Laban, don't say anything bad to Jacob, because God loves Jacob. Why can't Laban say something good to Jacob? Why is God telling Laban, don't say anything bad or good to Jacob? What would be so bad if Laban said, hey, Jacob, nice suit. I love your haircut. By the way, did I ever tell you, you've got lovely penmanship? What would be so terrible? And the rabbis, with crystalline clarity and tremendous insight into the way the world works, say it makes perfect sense. Because when you're dealing with someone who's rotten, someone who's a scum, you don't take anything from them. Nothing good, certainly, or nothing bad, certainly, or anything good. Anything good that comes from someone who's bad will invariably end up being bad. So whether Laban is coming at you with curses or blessings, stay away from him. Rahm Emanuel is a Jew and the mayor of Chicago and part of the filthy and disgusting political machine in Chicago. Former chief of staff for Barack Obama. That Rahm Emanuel is a jackass is obvious, axiomatic. He is inviting Louis Farrakhan and his Nation of Islam, a group of violence-prone racists, anti-Semites, onto the streets of Chicago in a policing capacity, in a law enforcement capacity. He's expecting something very good from someone and someones who are very bad. Alderwoman Deborah Silverstein, an Orthodox Jew, has said it's good that Farrakhan is helping in the fight against crime, quote, but it doesn't eradicate the comments that he's made about the Jewish community. Stop. Wrong, Ms. Silverstein. It is most certainly not good that Farrakhan is helping in the fight against crime. Farrakhan helps Farrakhan. Farrakhan helps the cause of racism. Nothing good is going to come out of Laban, as Jacob finds out. Nothing good is going to come out of the Nation of Islam. I continue, although Farrakhan has a history of making anti-Semitic statements, Chicago's first Jewish mayor has no interest in revisiting that controversy. Stop! Neither does a deer in the headlights. It stands there and does nothing. And so does Rahm Emanuel, who's got slightly less intelligence. We'll be back.
Just a good old boy. Hi, I'm Eric Cedarstrom. For over a decade, I've been the CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor of the Patriot Trading Group. And in that time, I've made friends with tens of thousands of like-minded individuals all over this country, most like me, trying to raise a family, run a business, and make sense out of a world gone mad. I'm proud of the fact that through stock bubbles, housing bubbles, and financial chaos, our customers are prospering and doing very well. By keeping our prices fair and our service fast, we find that 80% of our customers not only reorder, but they tell their friends. Don't be fooled by hype and high pressure. Do business with a company you can trust. Call the Patriot Trading Group at 1-800-951-0592 or check out our website at allamericangold.com. You'll be treated with honesty and respect. You have my word on it. I'm Eric Cedarstrom, CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor.
Making your way the only way they know how.
And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, He has declared Him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
The Beth Messiah congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine, point, and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices.
We are back as the Real Truth movement pushes on. Chris Wallace on Fox News a couple of days ago, interviewed Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia about a variety of topics, including gun control. Scalia is pushing a new book that he's written, It's important to listen to. Scalia is one of the justices who has his head screwed on correctly. So let's listen to a few minutes of Chris Wallace interviewing Judge Antonin Scalia.
Court on health care reform and immigration demonstrated once again what a central role the court plays in our government. The justices rarely do interviews or talk outside the court about how they reach their decisions. But in a new book called Reading the Law, The Interpretation of Legal Texts, Justice Antonin Scalia, the longest-serving member of the court, as well as law professor Brian Garner, explain what they believe is the right way to decide cases. And we are delighted Justice Scalia has agreed to join us today to talk about it. Justice, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wallace. Glad to be here.
You, in your new book, you explain your approach to judging, which is called textualism or originalism. What exactly is that?
Originalism is sort of a subspecies of textualism. Textualism means you're governed by the text. That's the only thing that is relevant to your decision. Not whether the outcome is desirable, not whether legislative history says this or that, but the text of the statute. Originalism says that when you consult the text, you give it the meaning it had when it was adopted, not some later modern meaning.
So if it was the Constitution written in the 18th century, you try to find what those words meant in the 18th century.
Exactly. The best example being the death penalty. I've sat with 3 colleagues who thought it was unconstitutional, but it's absolutely clear that the American people never voted to proscribe the death penalty. They adopted a cruel and unusual punishments clause at the time when every state had the death penalty and every state continued to have it. Nobody thought that the Eighth Amendment prohibited it.
All right. You criticize, and this gets to, as you say, some of your colleagues, another approach using a word I have to admit that I did not know existed prior to reading your book, purposivism. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, you did. It's a nice long word.
All right.
I didn't make it up.
What does it mean?
What it means is, and it's probably the most popular form of interpretation in recent times. It means consulting the purpose of the statute and deciding the case on the basis of what will further the purpose. Now, textualists consult purpose as well, but only the purpose that is apparent in the very text. I have to give you an example, or you won't understand the difference. Let's assume a statute which provides that the winning party in litigation will obtain attorney's fees. The issue is whether that includes the fees paid to expert witnesses, which can, amount to the thousands of dollars. The purposivist would be inclined to approach that by saying, what's the purpose of this statute? The purpose is to make the plaintiff whole, so that the money he receives for winning the case is money he can keep and he doesn't have to spend half of it on expert witnesses. The textualist would not say that, but would say what is the understood meaning of attorney's fees? And in fact, it was never thought to include expert witness fees.
All right. A couple of years ago, we had one of your colleagues, who I think you would say is on the other side of the judicial divide, Justice Stephen Breyer, on the show, and he said it is impossible to apply the law as it was written. Take a look.
The founders didn't know that commerce included airplanes. They didn't know about the internet or even television. And so the difficult job in open cases where there is no clear answer is to take those values in this document, which all Americans hold, which do not change, and to apply them to a world that is ever-changing.
Is Justice Breyer wrong?
Yes. That's a common and totally erroneous description of what originalism means. What originalism means is that you give the Constitution the meaning that it had with respect to those phenomena that were in existence at the time, say the death penalty.
But there are a lot of phenomena that aren't.
There weren't in existence. And for those, of course, you have to decide what the meaning ought to be. But the criterion for deciding what the meaning today ought to be is what was the understood meaning as applied to criteria at the time. For example, in the death penalty, when the electric chair comes in, it's a new phenomenon. What did the framers think of the electric chair? Who knows? There wasn't any electric chair. But they did have the death penalty, and they did impose death by hanging. So what the originals would say is the electric chair more cruel and unusual than hanging was? And of course it isn't, because it was adopted to be less cruel. And the same thing with lethal injection. Okay.
So here's what's happening. Justice Scalia and those who agree with him are following the paradigm that has led the United States to being the freest, richest, most powerful nation on the earth. People like Justice Breyer and those who believe, as he does on the left, on the liberal side, would say, yeah, screw that. We're smarter than the people who lived in the 1700s. We'll decide based on how we feel. In other words, there's an expression in business, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The people on the left say, it ain't broke, but we're going to fix it. Justice Scalia says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I happen to know from long experience that that is correct. I've been a fan of Justice Scalia for a long time. In fact, I'm enough of an old geezer. I remember when he was appointed to the Supreme Court. And I think he's done a kick-ass job. Item from Caroline Glick at the Jerusalem Post. For their efforts to warn about, perhaps cause the administration to abandon its reliance on Muslim Brotherhood front groups, Michelle Bachmann and her colleagues have been denounced as racists and McCarthyites. These attacks have not been carried out only by administration supporters. Republican Senator John McCain denounced Bachmann from the floor of the Senate. Republican Senator Marco Rubio later piled on, attacking her for her attempt to convince the administration to reconsider its policies. Those policies, again, placed the most radical members of the U.S. Muslim community in charge of the U.S. government's policies toward the Muslim Brotherhood and other jihadist movements. Stop. My friends, in political circles, Republican Senator Marco Rubio is hailed as a rock star. He's a Latino. Latinos are the fastest growing ethnic group in America. Soon they will be much larger. In a generation, they'll be even much larger than they are now. And so, the Republicans want someone who can speak to them and draw votes from the Latinos, and so they are pushing Marco Rubio like he's the best thing since sliced bread. I am here to tell you, what Michelle Bachmann has been saying is real, it's honest, it's accurate, and it's worthy of a leader in the United States of America. John McCain is nowhere. I don't expect anything good from him. But when Marco Rubio becomes a hindrance to America defending itself against those who are in agreement with or in league with the Muslim Brotherhood, that causes me a hell of a lot of concern, because Marco Rubio is going places. And I'm afraid that, intentionally or unintentionally, he and his friends are going to be taking the Muslim Brotherhood with them. And that scares the crap out of me. We'll be right back.
The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
An emergency preparedness plan for your home, car, school, and office is a must. Knowing how to store water safely, survive extreme temperature changes, provide reliable shelter, first aid, and sanitation is critical. Knowing where to get the best lights, radios, and other supplies is easy. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing realistic preparedness supplies at affordable prices. Stop by, go online, or call 303-781-0343, 866-781-0343. If you're spending hard-earned money on supplements, you need to know about BioSuperfood because you're probably shortchanging yourself on nutrition and value. If you're buying products claiming to provide DNA protection from radiation, you're getting ripped off by inferior copycat products because there's no other product developed or researched like BioSuperfood. BioSuperfood is one complete superfood product that addresses radiation poisoning, allergies, arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other degenerative diseases. BioSuperfood helps digestion, decreases pain and inflammation, increases flexibility, improves heart health and brain function. It boosts your immune system and even inhibits the AIDS virus and cancerous cells. It's an antibacterial, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory. BioSuperfood is not another supplement. It's a whole food and contains over 5,000 nutrients. Call now and ask about your special discounts on your BioSuperfood purchase at 303-257-7576. That's 303-257-7576 or biosuperfood@hotmail.com.
On Shabbat, July the 7th, Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to join them in praise and worship with Sue Samuels, a Hebraic root singer from Rhode Island. Sue and her husband Brian have been sharing music together for over 15 years, and together they have 3 CDs. Again, the date is July the 7th at 10:45. That's at 8333 Acoma Way, Beth Messiah Congregation, and we'll see you there.
Welcome back to Real Truth. Is this the largest banking corruption scandal in history? Well, Elliot Spitzer is talking to Matt Taibbi of Rolling Stone on this video, which you will find linked on my Facebook page, Real Truth. Let's find out exactly what LIBOR is and why it might indeed be the largest scandal in the history of banking. Let's listen.
Matt, you have said, as the headline I just quoted said, we should be outraged, screaming, going nuts over this. This is the mega scandal of mega scandals. Why, and why are you so outraged?
Well, I mean, LIBOR is like the sun at the center of the financial universe. I mean, if they're monkeying around with LIBOR, I talked to one friend who works on Wall Street. He said this is like finding out the whole world is built on quicksand, because LIBOR is in everything. It's in mortgages, it's in credit cards, it's in all kinds of investments that are tied up with municipalities and communities. So if they play with this rate, it affects everything in the world, basically. And this goes far beyond any corruption scandal we've had.
Give us a quick overview. What is it they did? I mean, explain to folks for whom LIBOR is like a foreign language. We know the prime rate, maybe we know, we see a credit card rate on the statement we get. What's LIBOR? Who is it? Who sets it? And what have they been doing to do this?
LIBOR is basically, it's the rate at which banks charge each other to lend to each other. So it's essentially every morning a committee calls up each of the 16 banks in this committee, and they ask them how much they've been charging each other to borrow. And they report a number, and what they've been doing is lying about how much they've been charging. They've been giving lower numbers, or sometimes higher. Actually, they've been tweaking it in both directions. But essentially, they've been faking their credit scores. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay. Now, I'm going to come back to the mechanics of this in a minute, because it's important in terms of how many other people almost necessarily were involved. Right. This can't be one bank doing it because of the way they do it. The import of this is, as you just said, every interest rate in the world comes back to LIBOR. You futz around with LIBOR, you're affecting hundreds of trillions of dollars every day. Right. Dennis, Matt is, I jump out of my skin and people know when I'm upset. For Matt, this is exuberant. Dennis, do you share the sense of outrage that if they're doing this, this is corruption based on corruption based on corruption?
If anything, it's an understatement, Elliot.
I'm not prone to understatement, so explain to me why that is.
But, nobody should be surprised that we have yet another corruption scandal being done by one of these global too-big-to-fail banks. This is their business model. They are based on and have been based on for a long time of making as much money as quickly as possible in any way that they cannot get caught. When they were deregulated in the early 2000s, it wasn't just that the regulators walked off the beat. they were given the green light that there were basically no rules that applied to them and they could do whatever they want. And took them about 7 years, and they caused the biggest financial crisis since the crash of 1929 and gave us the worst economy since the Great Depression. The same people who did that, the same executives at the same business model that crashed the entire financial system in 2008 are still running these banks. You know, Diamond didn't just get to Barclays. He was there throughout the run-up and the good times through the scandal. And we're facing this scandal now, and there's going to be more to the extent that anybody keeps looking, because the entire business model is corrupt and rotten to its core.
You know, Des, I just want to, for folks who don't know who you are and your resume, you were you're a partner at one of the biggest law firms in the world that represented these guys. And I don't say that with anything other than praise. You've worked with them, you've seen them, you understand them. You're not some crazy guy off the street we just dragged in to spew venom at them. You have worked with them and understand their thinking, their business practices, and everything else, because you just gave a pretty serious and I think absolutely on-the-point indictment of what has been wrong with our failure to impose any accountability. Virtually nobody has been chased out of the business, despite the massive, unbelievably expansive corruption that we've seen month after month. Matt, I want to come back to you because you said something critically important. The number 16. 16 banks get together to create and set LIBOR. So one stray outlier wouldn't shift it because of the way they do it, right? They take the top four, the bottom four, toss them out. In order for them to affect the LIBOR, a lot of people have to be involved.
Right, yeah. Every morning the British Bankers Association calls up all 16 of these banks. They ask them for a number, to report a number. They throw out the four highest numbers and the four lowest numbers. So that means necessarily that it can't just be Barclays and the Royal Bank of Scotland. In fact, it probably can't even be 4 banks or even 5 banks. Really, in the end, it's probably going to come out that it's going to be all of them were involved in this. Right. And that's what's critical for people to understand, that this is a cartel-style corruption. It's not just one Barclays.
Look, you've written recently about how mob behavior infiltrated Wall Street. Right. I rarely do this. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think the mob learned from Wall Street, not vice versa. I think the mob, seriously, I think the mob looked at the business practices, whether it's Rockefeller and the oil trust or Wall Street, and they said, hey, you know, cartels are good. They're better than hitting people over the head with a baseball. Anyway, your metaphor is perfectly apt. Dennis, you've seen these markets. Do you agree with Matt that this has got to be expansive? It's a cartel. It runs certainly beyond the UBS, RBS, and Barclays, the three that we know of having reached agreement so far.
I think, you know, history has proved that it's not that common that it's a one-off example where a bank kind of goes crazy and does something by itself to essentially take advantage of or manipulate or rip off its peers. What they historically do, and we just saw this in the FX market, the foreign exchange market, where they were manipulating what they were charging their customers. And it's an important lesson that, it got spread out over many months. It wasn't a crisis that reached a crescendo like this.
My friends, here's my question. You ever hear the word LIBOR before? I didn't. Why didn't we hear the word LIBOR before? Certainly all the news organizations are reporting it, right? Wrong. Certainly it's important enough that it should be reported, right? Well, right, it is. Why isn't it on the lips of the newscasters, the Ken and Barbie dolls, who read the news on CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, NBC, MOUSE? Why do I have to hear about this on a YouTube video? Why do I have to hear about it from a very excellent reporter who writes for Rolling Stone magazine? Why do I have to hear about it from Elliot Spitzer on Viewpoint? Why aren't we seeing it front page, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times? Well, you know the answer as well as I do. It's the same answer for the question, why is America circling the bowl? It's crime. We'll be back.
Why do the nations rage, and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces, and cast away their cords from us. Psalm 1, verses 1 through 3. Holy is the Lord.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188.
Texas Straight Talk from Congressman Ron Paul. The headline, Audit the Fed Moves Forward. I quote, last week the House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed my legislation calling for a full and effective audit of the Federal Reserve. Well over 300 of my congressional colleagues supported the bill, each casting a landmark vote that marks the culmination of decades of work. We've taken a big step toward bringing transparency to the most destructive financial institution in the world. But in many ways, our work is only beginning. Despite the Senate Majority Leader's past support for similar legislation, no vote has been scheduled on my bill this year in the Senate. And only 29 senators have co-sponsored Senator Rand Paul's version of my bill in the other body. If your senator is not listed at the link above, and my friends, you'll find this on my Facebook page, and you'll certainly find it on ronpaul.com, please contact them and ask for their support. We need to push Senate leadership to hold a vote this year. Understand that last week's historic vote never would have taken place without the efforts of millions of Americans like you, ordinary citizens concerned about liberty and the integrity of our currency. Political elites respond to political pressure, pure and simple. They follow rather than lead. If all 100 senators feel enough grassroots pressure, they will respond and force Senate leadership to hold what will be a very popular vote. In fact, Audit the Fed is so popular that 75% of all Americans support it, according to a Rasmussen poll. We're making progress. Of course, Fed apologists, including Mr. Bernanke, frequently insist that the Fed already is audited. But this is true only in the sense that it produces annual financial statements. It provides the public with its balance sheet as a fait accompli. We see only the net results of its financial transactions from the previous fiscal year in broad categories and only after the fact. We're also told that the Dodd-Frank bill passed in 2010 mandates an audit, but it provides for only a limited audit of certain Fed credit facilities surrounding the crisis period of 2008. It is backward-looking, which frankly is of limited benefit. The Fed also claims it wants to be independent from Congress so that politics don't interfere with monetary policy. This is absurd for two reasons. First, the Fed already is inherently and unavoidably political. It made a political decision when it chose not to rescue Lehman Brothers in 2008, just as it made a political decision to provide liquidity for AIG in the same time period. These are just two obvious examples. Also, Fed member banks and the Treasury Department are full of former and future Goldman Sachs officials. Are we really to believe that the interests of Goldman Sachs have absolutely no effect on Fed decisions? Clearly, it's naive to think the Fed is somehow above political or financial influence. Second, it's important to remember that Congress created the Fed by statute. Congress, therefore, has the full inherent authority to regulate the Fed in any way up to and including abolishing it altogether. My bill provides for an ongoing, thorough audit of what the Fed really does in secret, which is make decisions about the money supply, interest rates, and bailouts of favored banks financial firms and companies. In other words, I want the Government Accountability Office to examine the Fed's actual monetary policy operations and make them public. It is precisely this information that must be made public because it so profoundly affects everyone who holds, saves, or uses U.S. dollars, unquote. My friends, let's put it in perspective. The Fed is the bad guy. The Fed has been devaluing our currency and playing games that keep us poor or close to it since 1913. And our government has done nothing. The Fed has to go. Auditing it is step one. Ultimately, the Fed needs to go. It needs to go. And no, I haven't heard Romney or Obama say that either. I'll be back tomorrow with more Real Truth. My friends, give your kids a hug and a kiss and tell them you love them. See you tomorrow.